Good morning everybody, and welcome to the first piece of content on this channel regarding the Great Deku Tree. While many of you probably expected me to review the set first, instead we're going to take a look at some easy upgrades you can add to this already fantastic model. Lots of these are even possible for just the spare parts in the set, and there's going to be a timestamp down below to tell you which version of the tree we are talking about. I've got plenty of ideas, so let's get into it. Starting with the Ocarina tree, when you build this model you're left with 5 unopened bags, as well as some loose parts. I'd recommend that you take a look inside and grab some wonderful extra Zelda elements. Alongside the pedestal and treehouse that are built in both versions, you're able to build the koroks, including 2 spare face tiles, 4 spare mushrooms, a korok pot, korok bed, a Breath of the Wild fairy, cooking pot, bean light, Sheikah bombs and pedestal, 2 small trees, 2 medium trees and 2 large trees, alongside all the pink foliage, and there's still parts left over, and of course none of this impacts the other builds. You have to steal nothing from the treehouse or pedestal. The same is true when you build the Breath of the Wild version. I strongly recommend building bag 22 to get the Skulltula, Babas, Easter eggs, Deku Sprout, dungeon items, but we'll come back to this later on. Okay, so what can we do with these? Let's get a little creative. The Breath of the Wild pedestal sits alone when you build the Ocarina of Time Deku tree, and there's nothing stopping us from adding some details. We can add cherry blossom trees. I personally like this asymmetrical combination here. More mushrooms, and don't forget to add Hestu and the koroks as well. I'll also be changing my silent printer stems to bright green. There are 2 spares in this colour no matter which version of the tree you build, but you can always add more from your own collection. The bean lights are also found all over Korok Forest, so adding this one from Walton's area here adds to the ambience and variety of the foliage, but we're going to be coming back to this one later. While I won't be discussing any extreme modifications in this video, as those will take a little bit more time, to achieve a more classic look, replace the blue plates at the base of the tree with plain green. However, this more high definition Ocarina of Time tree can be made even more modern with the addition of the cherry trees, which don't look too out of place and bring the tree into a more lush, vibrant environment, but this is down to personal choice. Personally, using these small green trees and some extra accessories from my own collection, I prefer this more classic look. The Rivendell Fern is a perfect recreation of the N64 bushes, and if you have any extras in your collection, there's no limit to how more you can add. With the extra parts left over, we can still do some more. I only placed 3 of the 4 trees on the pedestal, so I have 1 left over. Placing this on some tan plates, adding a log print and a campfire with a little cooking setup for Link. Currently these trees are looking a little bare, so this could represent a place like Makar Island off to the left of the Lost Woods. With a little bit of pink and a smaller tree, this build looks right at home in the Lost Woods itself. No extra parts required. Another quick sub-assembly is a Sheikah display. Take the Evo mech joint left over from the other build and insert a pin into the middle. Some plates on either end to increase the length, again all included in the set, and you have a little place to put the bombs and the terminal as if they're being researched, or perhaps maybe this is actually inside a shrine as well. Just a little bit of Sheikah creativity. Let's think a little bit more ambitiously though. I want to use more of these leftover parts, so I scrapped the previous tree build and got back to work. I thought about other Breath of the Wild locations with cherry trees, and one big one stood out, Satori Mountain. It's not going to look quite as grand or elegant as that tree. The Lego bonsai tree would be a better element for that, but we have a korok and the pond and a fairy floating above it. It's only a loose approximation, but it's cute. I also have a side piece here with a flower and a cooking pot that used a fair few more of the parts and can be built alongside the Sheikah display and upgraded pedestal as well. This means that you have this sort of extra collection here, and I actually really like the style of this mock. It doesn't fit the Deku tree, but it does look great alongside it. Yeah, just getting creative with the parts and using nothing extra from your collection. If you guys were willing to open up different parts from your own part storage, you could make this look a lot better, but I think it's a unique idea nonetheless. My number 1 wished inclusion and my number 1 recommendation if you're building the Ocarina of Time tree is more characters. The first boss, Queen Gohma, is almost as iconic as the location itself, and here she is. I've added her to the mock using my custom instructions that are available for free over on Rebrickable. She's figure scale, has a fair range of posability, and I've added custom stickered eyes. She doesn't quite fit on the interior, although she can squeeze in, but she can hold from this spiderweb. Personally though, I think she looks best off to the side on the grass, as the side build she was always meant to be. And this again, is just an extra detail that makes this model look even bigger, and personally I think this one is perfectly in style with the tree. While this mod does use pieces that are none of which are in the set, like completely new pieces, it is quite a cheap one to do on Bricklink, and I'd highly recommend it as a really simple expansion for the tree. Alongside her, I also have the design for her lava, 3 of them to be precise, which can be scattered around and either fight with your young Link or add to the display. Perhaps they could even sit in the tree so that when you open the mouth, you get jump scared by them. And then lastly, a Deku scrub. If you've been following me for a while, you may remember that I believe that this design was scrapped from the original Deku Tree model early in development. He has a flick-fire missile to launch at Link. I've done customize once again, and then there's leaves on the top. And like any of the plants or characters, he sits perfectly on these jumper studs and can be rearranged with any of the other builds. He's a really camouflaged but lovely addition, and also paying homage to that original version. Even if maybe I was wrong, I don't know. Even around the back here, it fits really well into the dungeon and the theme as a whole. The set already includes 2 wonderfully recreated weapons from the Ocarina of Time, with a Deku shield print and Kokiri's sword. That's the wrong colour, but we'll let it slide. But in the first dungeon, there were also 2 other iconic weapons. Here is the Deku sticks, built 2 different ways, either with a lightsaber hilt and carrot top in brown, or this simpler yet less recognisable 4-long brown bar, which is just a Harry Potter wand really, from back in the day, if you know you know. Either works great to attack a Baba with and add a little bit of extra variety to your display. I also found some of these. It's a nut print from the Series 23 Nutcracker, and it looks exactly like a Deku nut. Of course, if I throw them at the ground, they stun our enemies here. We can use these Deku sticks to light a torch puzzle on the interior of the tree. I replicated the torch design and placed them on these easily interchangeable jumper studs. This means we can give the interior a slightly varied feel for very minimal effort and try and show more of the dungeon rooms. And there's also chance for more severe modifications. I also like that these torches look good while flanking the model. I feel it frames the opening and actually creates a much more dungeony feel. They're really simple builds that sort of go a long way. Specifically, I like the customizability here so that you could rearrange that room with the 3 torches at different heights, or just they're here to be lit, or maybe they're all lit, who knows, it's up to you guys. Some last things before we change trees though. I'd be looking at a key, dungeon map, and this spider piece in highlighter yellow, which has recently come out for a golden Skulltula. I don't have these 3 parts on hand yet, but I think they would be clever additions to their set, and I'm really surprised that we don't have a key. These next couple of changes you can make regardless of which tree you choose to build. In terms of characters, because 2 fairies are included, we can change one of those colours out, and we can either have 2 Breath of the Wild fairies, we could change both out to make Tattle and Tail from Majora's Mask, and at any one time you can have 2 of the 3 Phantom Hourglass fairies, Celia, Leaf or Neri. I think it's time to get a couple more of these parts on Bricklink, because personally I'd love to have a couple more Breath of the Wild ones, Tattle and Tail. I could pass on the Phantom Hourglass slot, but I definitely need at least another 3 prints. Regardless of which version you build, we also have a spare compass print. Okay, 2 spare Korok masks, we're coming back to those, and spare parts which could allow you to make another Silent Princess, which you could put in Breath of the Wild Zelda's hands. But they also include 3 of the elements to construct another famous part of Link's toolkit. By adding just 3 purple studs from your own collection to the 3 spares I've just mentioned, we can have the long shot as well as the hook shot. It's 1 stud longer, and with a fancy colour, they look absolutely great together and really like they belong. This is such a creative one, and it means that the harder to get parts, which still aren't very hard to get, but the slightly harder to get parts that would make up this build are all included in the set as spares. Again, no damage needed. Just 3 purple studs and you're on your way. Let's get back to those Koroks though. One of the most important upgrades you can make to this set is to buy the parts for 2 more bodies. It's not quite 900, but it will go a long way to filling out their home. Here are 2 standard ones. Again, those face tiles are included in the set, so all you really need to do is buy a modified 1x1 brick, a clip and a stud, and you've got 2 more Koroks. You can do these in a variety of colours, as you can see here, sand green and brown, but if we expand the concept, you could also use this transparent rod and a little target piece here to make a Korok with the arrow shooting puzzle. Or I've got a backpack build with a frying pan on the side and a little bit of curve to it to recreate a backpack Korok from Tears of the Kingdom. Very cute. Ooh, maybe not. Quite a few of you asked me to try the Big Up Korok design, the one I originally used back in the CSS and has been quite popular in the community. While I'm even less of a fan of it now after seeing it in person, here they are. By using a bigger base, they're more out of scale with figures and honestly a little too girthy, they look a little stretched. I don't think it helps that I'm getting used to the newer ones now as well, and that particularly here on this green one, the face looks very small. It's not too bad on the orange leaf one, I will admit, but yeah, just way too big for me. I think I'll stick with the smaller ones. They seem to go a lot further. Poop is also a central part of this upgrade, specifically for Korok seeds. We have 2 choices that I came up with. The first is the wrong colour. It's this brown ice cream or dog poo element that's perfect right shape, but just not in the right colour. Or you've got the older ice cream piece, which isn't the right colour, but is in gold. I tried to add this piece to Hestu's maracas, but this stops them from shaking, so I think we're going to keep the original studs. But one place I'm definitely putting this piece is underneath the tree in the base. This is the Octane pattern pending modification, little Easter egg for you guys, and I think should have been included in the set. Everybody should do this. It's just sweet and small and just adds a smile to my face to know that it's there. So really nice modification. Link can also get some korok attire if we add a brown spear representing the Forest Dweller spear, and this shield built from just 2 brackets on a plate with some tile decor. We have the Forest Dweller shield as well, which kits him out perfectly for this environment. As an aside, I did also try a Ninjago scabbard on the Master Sword, but alas, no opportunity to fit either this or the Traveler's Sword on his back just yet. I'm sure someone can come up with a custom combination, but here's the official one, unfortunately doesn't work. So the Breath of the Wild tree is incredibly lush already. I don't have too much therefore that I want to add, as I'm actually really happy with the build, but we're going to start off with some birds. I brought these off Bricklink and they come in blue, red and white, and I think they do a great job at representing the clusters of birds that you see all over Hyrule, but particularly Hyrule's forest. It just makes this scene, well, busier and a little bit more colourful as well, and you can fit them in clusters around. I think I'll get a couple more for this. You could also add a cheeky classic nod to the heart plants from the old games, or even some bomb flowers around as well. Again, more colour, but I don't think I'll be keeping these guys here. My favourite detail for out front though is taking the Walton bean tree design that we talked about earlier and just adding more of them. 3 to be precise, so I have a total of 4. 1 I'm keeping on the back of the tree, and I'm placing the rest, well, basically wherever you like. There are lights like this all over Korok Forest, inside and out, so you could even put them in the navel too, and I think they work really, really well. It adds more variety to the plant structure and more colour as well. I think it's really, really important and definitely my favourite modification to the Breath of the Wild tree. Round the back, I've placed Walton back in his spot, and I've turned Navi into a second Breath of the Wild fairy, although this does mean she can't be displayed with the Ocarina of Time link. Yet again, another reason to get more of that fairy dish plate off Bricklink. A little bit messy down below, but there is a general store that appears in the Deku tree's navel, so I've recreated the stock for that. We have the sugarcane, Tabantha wheat, a mushroom, hearty truffle, which is missing from the Spore store Lego, it's not in your official build. We have some arrows, and even 2 builds representing a diamond, which would be Walton's treasure hunt reward. Or these are just perfect to put in a chest. Speaking of, very last things to talk about, let us make use of bag 22. When you build the Breath of the Wild Deku tree, there is significantly less parts left over this time, so things are going to look a little bit more rough, but here's a small tree build that I managed. A little bit of a leaf coming off the side, but this is literally built off a 2x4 plate. No real plates left over this time. And we also got some low-lying bushes, which are nothing too special, just leftover foliage stacked up. You could also add some foliage around some side builds, specifically like the Deku Babbles or the Gossip Stone, which sort of bulk them out, make them more stable, and make them stand on their own if you're going to be displaying the Ocarina builds in a separate little visionette. But I actually use most of my paths to create this doorway for a shop, awning, or I like to think dungeon room. Whatever it is, there's room to block it off with a cobweb. And if you take the back off the Skulltula build, he fits really nicely on there, and you have a little dungeon display again. Really, I think this is the time for you guys to get creative. If you're displaying the Breath of the Wild tree, be sure to build bag 22 and give these iconic creatures a home. If you have your own parts collection, I'd grab a base plate of some kind and you can stick some of the builds together, make us a nice visionette and a way to display those Deku Babbles and Skulltula, and even stuff like the arrow and songboard. And yeah, you just stick them together and have fun. That's all the modifications I have for you today. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you appreciated the video, consider leaving us a little bit of a subscribe and stay tuned because I'm working hard on my big Deku tree review. It's going to be very in-depth and probably very long, so I have no idea how rambly it's going to turn out, but I'm looking forward for you guys to see it. And I have one other big modification planned for the tree in the future, as well as comparing the Master Sword pedestal to my own build. There's plenty more coverage on the Deku tree to come, and of course many custom sets. If you're new to the channel, I'd recommend checking out the Wave 8 custom set showcase, all based off Tears of the Kingdom, or our new 2-in-1 Temple of Time, which I actually designed way before the Deku tree, but that video came out a couple of weeks ago and I think you guys would like it. So have a wonderful rest of your day. Let me know what modifications you're going to do to the Deku tree. Is there anything I missed that warrants a part 2? And what you think of what I showed you today. And have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye bye.